Good morning, honorable members. Let's observe a moment for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Please be seated. The secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 22, Correctional Services Appropriation Bill.
The Honourable Minister of Correctional Services.
Geachte voorzitter, I want to start recognizing the Deputy Minister for Correctional Services, honourable members of the Portfolio Committee, other honourable members, the National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services, the Inspecting Judge, Judge Bosalek, and if there are members linked, also members of the National Council for Correctional Services, and even members of parole boards. We rise today at a moment that tests both the resolve and the resilience of the Department of Correctional Services. We face a challenging situation marked by tight budgets, the departure of experienced officials, a rising number of offenders serving longer sentences, and crime levels that have not declined at the pace our society demands. Although it will be easy to reflect on the many mistakes, shortcomings, and difficulties we face, it is imperative that we do not lose sight of the progress we have made. Day by day, we are restoring hope. Honourable Chair, if you look at the budget over the current medium-term expenditure framework, the department must absorb budget reductions amounting to 683.4 million rand. These reductions negatively affect the department's operational capacity, straining our ability to fill critical posts, maintain optimal staff to inmate ratios, and sustain the level of services required for safe custody and effective rehabilitation. As of 5th of May this year, the inmate population was recorded at 169,519, with an overcrowding rate of 58%. Of these inmates, 63,194 are remand detainees, individuals who have not yet received a sentence by our courts. We even have people waiting for more than 10 years. This situation continues to exert significant pressure on infrastructure, personnel, and resources. This budget for this financial year is 30.939 billion rand and is projected to grow modestly to 32.8 billion rand in 28-29. Take into account compensation of employees accounting for over 70% of expenditure, which avails only 29.98, make it 30%, which is an amount of 9.303 billion rand for operational costs. Within this allocation, we are making deliberate choices, prioritizing critical posts, and investing in infrastructure to ensure that we fulfill our mandate. There is, however, one area, namely self-sufficiency, where resilience is most evident. It is in our drive towards self-sufficiency and sustainability. Faced with rising costs and limited resources, the department has expanded agricultural production, workshops, and internal manufacturing capabilities. These are not only cost-saving measures, but also rehabilitation tools that equip offenders with practical skills and restore a sense of purpose. After opening bakeries at Standerton and Pietermaritzburg in 24-25, the initiative expanded into 25-26 with a new bakery in Durban, bringing the total to 12 bakeries. This has enabled the department to save more than 77.1 million rand on bread in the 25-26 financial year. The 13th bakery at KwaLakabusha is nearing completion and will be operational this financial year. We aim to have 7 more bakeries by the end of 2028. Chairperson, we are steadily moving towards a model of greater self-sufficiency, where each management area is equipped with its own bakery. Let's hope by the end of 28 that we will be 100% self-sufficient in terms of bread. From farm production and producing vegetables, meat and dairy, to workshops manufacturing uniforms, furniture and essential goods, the department is steadily reducing its reliance on external procurement, which enhancing offender development. During 25-26, the value of production workshops orders from client departments was 101.7 thousand rands as at the end of February 26, which included the departments of Water and Sanitation, Defence, Public Works, Justice and Development, and the Office of the Inspecting Judge. There is a brochure here in the portal in the front where I invite you to go and look what we do manufacture. This is inadequate, and therefore I am once again formally extending the invitation to other departments to follow in these departments to order furniture from the Department of Correctional Services. From April 25 to February 26, the Witbank Textile Workshop manufactured 40,869 items for officials' uniforms, an increase of 13,047 items compared with the previous financial year. So there is progress. In the 25-26 financial year, savings of 125 million rand were realized through internally produced agricultural commodities. We must say to each other that security forms the core of the department's functions. During the last budget debate, I committed to more unannounced visits and raids, and we have met that promise. In the previous budget vote, I announced that 466 raids had been conducted. From then, we have significantly expanded our efforts, increasing the number of raids to 1,406, an increase of 200%. This resulted in the confiscation of 37,500 cell phones and other contraband. During the December-January holiday period alone, officials carried out searches across correctional facilities nationwide, confiscating over 8,000 cell phones, 102,700 rand in cash, and numerous other illegal items. Some interpret these results as operational failures, but they serve actually as evidence of a more aggressive security strategy. The large-scale confiscations and frequent raids demonstrate our increased control over internal threats. And at the lead of this is the National Commissioner. Let me be clear. We are effectively purging our prisons of illegal activities. Those involved in smuggling should understand that the days are numbered. Failure to confront those who betray their duties endangers the many honorable officials working in dangerous conditions. It is essential to act swiftly and decisively against corruption to safeguard these individuals and to reaffirm trust in our institutions. Therefore, this coming year, the department will enforce a strict zero-tolerance policy regarding cell phone use within our facilities. This will involve transitioning to two-way radios for internal communication. The policy will initially be implemented in select locations and expanded. We will start with Polsmoor, and that means that not even officials will be able to take their cell phones into the facilities. So if you have a cell phone with you, then you are contravening. And we will also focus on other centers, especially where gangs are quite active although they're in prisons. The department has a zero-tolerance approach against officials who undermine the department's integrity. Discipline, accountability, and ethical conduct are non-negotiable. A total of 2,388 officials were subjected to disciplinary hearings during the reporting period, of which 2,138 cases have been finalized. This reflects progress in improving the efficiency of disciplinary processes and reinforcing a culture of accountability within the department. Of the 2,388 cases, 137 were involved in contraband-related misconduct. At the center of this system are the men and women who serve in correctional services. It is for this reason that we have reintroduced medals for faithful long service for 10, 20, 30, and 40 years service within the department. A significant step towards restoring tradition, honoring excellence, and strengthening our organizational culture. These medals are awarded to officials who have dedicated years of service to the department, an extraordinary testament to loyalty, discipline, and commitment. The department has already honored a total of 187 qualifying officials with the 40 years faithful service. Efficient center-level operations are essential for a credible and effective correctional system. As a result, during the 25-26 financial year, I engaged directly with all heads of center nationwide. These interactions went beyond administrative matters. They were a deliberate affirmation of the vital leadership role these officials hold within the broader correctional framework. I further directed the National Commissioner to review the policy on training of all officials, including officials in critical posts such as heads of center, who inter alia will be subjected to annual examinations to ensure that our centers and their leadership comply with all legislative requirements. In affirming its institutional standing, the department has introduced new insignia for members of the senior management services, reflecting both leadership authority and its integral role with the Justice, Crime and Prevention and Security cluster. New insignia for officials on levels 2 to 12 in the Correctional Services Occupational Specific Dispensation is approved and will be rolled out. Our ongoing effort is to fortify the department, reaffirm our constitutional obligations, and uphold justice throughout South Africa. Each day presents a fresh opportunity to restore, improve, and create hope for a future that is safe, peaceful, and prosperous. If we talk about correctional services, we say that we will deliver a service to the people of South Africa. And that service is to protect them from dangerous criminals that endanger people's lives. And we will continue to do that within the spectrum of discipline, accountability, and hard and ethical work. I want to thank all the role players. Firstly, I want to thank the staff in my office, the National Commissioner and his team, and every official in the department for their hard work and dedication to continue and contribute to a safer South Africa for all. If we all take hands, we will succeed. And I also want to thank the Portfolio Committee for Correctional Services under the leadership of Honorable Ramolobeng, I've got it. So together we take hands and we will succeed. I thank you, and therefore I table the budget vote 2022 for vote 22 for consideration by this House. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next speaker is in fact the Honourable Ramolobeng.
It's Ramolobeng. House Chair, can you correct them? House Chairperson, Minister Groenewald, Deputy Minister Njali, Honourable Members, the National Commissioner, and to the hard-working men and women in brown uniform, as the African National Congress, we see you, we appreciate you, we appreciate your service, and we honor the difficult work you do every day inside our correctional centers. To the people of South Africa watching this debate, whether from your homes, your workplaces, or even from behind the walls of our facilities, this debate is about you, your safety, and the kind of society we're building 30 years into constitutional democracy. The Department of Correctional Services annual performance plan for this MTF period are clear. They place rehabilitation, safe custody, and social reintegration at the center of its work. And as the African National Congress, we support Budget Vote 22 and welcome the continued increases across the departmental programs as a necessary investment in safer and more rehabilitative correctional centers. We do not support this budget because everything is perfect inside our correctional facilities. Far from it. We support it because we understand if we abandon this budget, we abandon the project of building a correctional system that is developmental, constitutional, and humane. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa is very clear. It protects equality in Section 9, dignity in Section 10, freedom and security of the person in Section 12, and the rights of arrested, detained, and accused person in Section 35. Section 35 more specifically says that detained people, including sentenced prisoners, must be held under conditions consistent with human dignity, with adequate accommodation, nutrition, reading material, exercise, and medical treatment. Those are not favors. They are constitutional instructions to this House and to the executive. As we debate this budget, we are not just speaking about the line items. We are debating about whether our state is willing to fund its own legal and constitutional obligations. We must be honest with our people about the reality of contraband, illegal cell phones, drugs, and organized gang networks that operate from inside our facilities. We cannot speak about rehabilitation while someone is still running a criminal enterprise from inside a cell using a smartphone or a TikTok account. So this budget must translate into tighter security measures, better intelligence, stronger internal investigations, and real consequences for any official or inmate who keeps those underground networks alive. Honorable members, any honest debate about corrections must confront the crisis of overcrowding and the large number of remand detainees. Overcrowding is not only a problem of numbers, it is a humane problem. When you pack human beings into facilities that were never designed for those numbers, you put pressure on infrastructure, You make rehabilitation programs almost impossible to deliver, and you compromise the safety of both inmates and officials. Remand detainees, many of whom are still awaiting trial, some for minor offenses, end up stuck in conditions that harden them instead of allowing for justice to take its course fairly and speedily. The white paper on remand detention management reminds us that remand detention is not punishment. Those detainees are still presumed innocent and are held only to ensure they appear in court, but when the system is slow, when cases drag, when bail decisions are inconsistent, those people end up stuck for long periods in conditions that fuel frustrations, violence, and further criminalization. That is why stronger coordination across the criminal justice cluster is non-negotiable. Our police, prosecutors, our courts, and correctional services must act like one system, not four separate departments. Honorable members, legislative reform is another critical pillar. We can't manage 21st century correctional challenges with outdated legal frameworks. We need to move with speed on issues relating to state patients and the broader management of detainees within the criminal justice system. The current gaps and bottlenecks lead to people remaining in correctional facilities when they should be in appropriate mental health institutions, and when alternative care arrangements should be kept in place. This is unfair to them. It is unfair to other inmates as well, unlawful, and it places unnecessary strain on already limited correctional resources. Updating and aligning legislation and practice is essential if the system is to respect both human rights and the efficient use of limited resources. House Chair, at the center of all these interventions is a simple but powerful principle. Rehabilitation must remain the core of correctional services, not an add-on. If rehabilitation becomes a nice to have that gets cut when budgets are tight, then we would have given up on an idea that people can change. That is why, as the ANC, we continue to support programs focused on offender rehabilitation, education, vocational training, and social reintegration. An inmate with a matric, a trade, a skill, and a support network is less likely to return to crime than someone who spent years idling in a violent environment. Every workshop, every classroom, every vocational program inside a correctional center is an investment in lower crime rates outside that facility. But honorable members, we must go further. Correctional services must become more productive and self-sufficient. Our centers should be sites of agricultural productions, skills development, and offender work programs that produce cost to the fiscus, provide work experience, and contribute to food security. When offenders wake up to a structured day of work, training, and education, you disrupt the idle time that feeds into gangs and violence. At the same time, you prepare them to re-enter the economy with practical skills. House Chair, building this kind of system requires more than programs. The National Democratic Revolution has always been about transforming the state and society in favor of human dignity, equality, development, and the advancement of the people. And that task must also find expression in the correctional environment. Senior management appointments, performance management, and discipline must reflect this. You cannot credibly fight corruption and gangsterism on the ground if there is a weak management on the top. In this context, the Correctional Services Learnership Program becomes strategically important. It is not just a training course, it is the pipeline for a new generation of skilled, ethical, and people-centered public servants into corrections. The department must use the 2026-2027 budget to strengthen this program, ensure its quality, and protect it from capture. When young recruits enter the system with a clear value base and proper training, they become the backbone of a modern constitutional correctional service. As we debate this budget, We are reminded of the words of the liberation struggle stalwart and lifelong champion of justice, Oliver Tambo, who understood both the sacrifices made for our freedom and the responsibility of building a society rooted in human dignity, when he said that a nation that does not take care of its youth has no future. It is against this background that the African National Congress has been unequivocal on demographic transformation, inclusivity, and youth empowerment in the public service. The department is no exception in this matter. We will not compromise on the principle that the state must reflect the people it serves, especially in the leadership and the frontline roles. Young people, female youth must find meaningful opportunities for skills development, leadership, and employment within correctional services. It is not about ticking affirmative action boxes. It is about harnessing the talents and perspectives we need to build a human and effective system. Honorable members, our task as Parliament is not to grandstand while the system collapses, but to provide oversight, push for reforms, and support the investments that will make our people and correctional centers more safer. The true measure of this budget, therefore, will not only be found in the figures we allocate today, but in whether those resources are utilized effectively to strengthen rehabilitation and reintegration programs, uphold human dignity within our correctional centers, and ultimately reduce reoffending in our society. It is for these reasons that the ANC supports Budget Vote 22, not as a rubber stamp, but as a commitment to intensify oversight, deepen transformation, and push the entire criminal justice system to live up to the constitutional promise of dignity, equality, justice for all, including those behind the walls. House Chair, as the ANC, we support this budget vote. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Gaza.
Oh. Honorable Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Minister, the members of Umkhonto weSizwe, and fellow South Africans. We have read Budget Vote 22. We have seen through the smoke of the so-called GNU, and we are looking at the mirrors. The MK Party rejects this budget not for politics, but because it fails inmates, fails parolees, and fails South Africans who want safer communities. Let me give you 4 reasons. Reason number 1, the money is in the wrong place. 30.9 billion for prisons, 79% goes to administration and incarceration logs, guards and head office. Only 12% goes to rehabilitation and reintegration, the only thing that stops people from coming back. You spend 8 times more on keeping people inside than on fixing why they came in. The Mandela rules say rehabilitation first. We have chosen prison first. That is not correction. That is a reoffending factory. Reason number 2, you have surrendered on overcrowding. Your target is below 50%, and you leave it there. No reduction, no bold plan. That means a prison built for 1,000 people, it still holds 1,500 people. The Constitutional Court calls that a violation. You admit that remand detainees are the problem. Where is the solution? Faster courts, community sentences, smart parole? Nowhere. You are managing overcrowding, not solving it. Reason number 3, you're letting people die and accept it. Your own report shows unnatural death hanging. Murders, suicide, medical neglect have not been reduced. The committee asked, how can assault go down, but deaths stays the same? Chairperson, this is a moral failure. if you cannot promise to reduce deaths every year, you are admitting the system is not safe. Zero unnatural death is the only acceptable target. You have failed that end, and you have failed that test. Reason number 4, rehabilitation for sure. You break about an 88 metric pass rate %. But what job you wait for? What job waits for those offenders when they leave prisons? You cut community integration from 21,000 parolees just to 13,000. Real-time cutoff of over 9%. You teach people to pass exams, then give them nowhere to go. That is not rehabilitation. This is a cycle back to crime. And now, Honorable Chairperson, the watchdogs, jigs. On paper, it sounds strong, responsive, side protection.
Utocala la taqala
Protecting
todla
women.
bese hamba yolala mara wanda kuthi impilo lenjani.
Honorable member, just hold on, please. Honorable members on the virtual platform and specifically the Honorable Swarts, please remain muted until you're recognized to speak. My apologies, Honorable member, please continue.
And now, Honorable Chairperson, the watchdogs, jigs. On paper, it sounds strong, responsive oversight protecting human dignity. But their own document admits deep dangerous weaknesses. You cannot monitor the lion when you are sitting inside its cage. You cannot call yourself a watchdog when you have no power to bite. And you certainly cannot protect human dignity from an empty kennel. What we have here is a watchdog with no teeth and an empty kennel. We support independent oversight, but this plan does not deliver it. It delivers theater. So here is our final word, Chairperson. We reject this budget because it overfunds prison walls and underfunds human change. It accepts overcrowding and unnatural deaths as normal. It cuts the very community programs that work, and it keeps the watchdog weak, the watchdog with no teeth and empty kennel. We as MK Party, we send it back to the sender. Our demands are 50% of the budget to rehabilitation and reintegration within 5 years. A real plan to send it unnatural death, target 0. A fully independent jigs with teeth and a canal that means something. Until then, we vote no.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Visan Kaba.
Thank you, House Chair. Our correctional system rests on 2 pillars: keeping communities safe by securely housing incarcerated criminals and preparing offenders to return to communities as contributing members of society. All this depends on the proper management and allocation of the funding apportioned to the department. Through committee engagements and oversight trips, a number of areas of underperformance stick out and need to be addressed. If we fail to do so, we will not be able to deliver the security that our communities yearn for. Yet again, in Drakenstein, we heard last week that the lack of perimeter fencing not only contributes to the inflow of contraband, but it also allows for large quantities of agricultural produce that should be feeding the centers to be stolen. It is a matter of time before that escalates to facilitating escapes from centers. Another recurring theme at every oversight visit conducted is the low number of offenders engaged in educational and skills programs. This is largely due to lack of staff and to some degree lack of facilities. And finally, despite undertakings from the department, there remains a shortage of psychologists, of social workers, artisans, and criminologists. It's also important to note that all the educational and psycho-support programs are enabled by the availability of security personnel to watch over the programs. For this reason, the rate of vacancies in these vital positions is deeply concerning. Now, to the casual observer, these things can seem unimportant until you consider one factor. Effectively, South Africa has no life sentence. Every individual sentenced to life imprisonment will at some stage be considered for parole and could potentially be released to your community or mine. In Khayelitsha, for example, 1,722 offenders have been paroled to that community over 10 years. 790 of them are violent crimes. 257 were convicted of rape or sexual assault. Now, tell me, can the department guarantee the families that those offenders are going back to, that it's safe to live with them? Can the department guarantee communities that the underlying psychosocial issues that led to criminality have been addressed? Can our victims trust that community corrections is equipped to oversee these offenders? My answer today is no, and I honestly could not say anything else. Without enough social workers, psychologists, and educators, how can we rehabilitate some of the most troubled and violent offenders in our facilities? That these professional staff shortages happen despite the number of qualified unemployed graduates is even more alarming. House Chair, the Department of Correctional Services has a human resources problem. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like they have the skills or the will to address that issue. The cost of neglecting this crucial function is a dysfunctional system that is only fit to train and prepare repeat offenders who will come back and clog up our system, exacerbating overcrowding. Contrary to what the Portfolio Committee Chair has said, the department must stop playing demographic games in hiring. Focus rather on recruiting the most qualified people available to mitigate the growing number of early retirements that are draining valuable skills from the department. House Chair, there are valuable programs in the department. I am a huge fan of the self-sufficiency programs, and I hope to see them grow in the coming years. But to bring this to fruition, we need to stop majoring in the minors and address the core impediments that prevent the department from fixing itself. Fix the rot in your HR system. Get qualified individuals into crucial vacant posts immediately. And prioritize your perimeter fencing so you can have safe and secure contraband-free centers where agricultural production can thrive away from thieving hands. That is the only way to move the Department of Correctional Services away from the den of iniquity that it is right now, and that adds to our crime crisis rather than fixing it. Our communities deserve nothing less.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honorable Nolochungu.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chairperson, this budget does not build a correctional system centered on rehabilitation, dignity, and social reintegration. It entrenches overcrowding, institutional decay, and human suffering. The department speaks constantly about rehabilitation, yet the numbers tell a different story. Nearly 80% of the allocation remains concentrated in administration and incarceration, while rehabilitation and social integration continue receiving a fraction of the budget. That is not a correctional model, it is a containment model. Overcrowding remains the defining crisis. Pollsmoor, Westville, and St. Albans continue operating under severe pressure. Remand detainees remain packed into facilities for months and sometimes years because of court delays. Weak investigations, dysfunctional case management, and failures across the broader criminal justice system. The APP still speaks vaguely about keeping overcrowding below 50%, as though overcrowding itself has become acceptable state policy. But overcrowding is only one part of the crisis. Gang structures continue operating inside facilities. Contraband still enters prisons through organized criminal networks involving offenders and, in some cases, corrupt officials. Security failures persist despite repeated assurance from the department. The EFF has consistently warned that without stronger intelligence capacity and consequence management, correctional services will continue functioning as recruitment sites for organized crime. The department also avoids the central question: if rehabilitation programs are supposedly succeeding, why is recidivism still such a major concern in South Africa? How many offenders leave prison with stable employment opportunities? How many returned within 3 years? How many rehabilitation programs are actually tracked after release? We hear about workshops completed and programs attended, but communities want to know whether people are leaving prison less likely to commit crime again. That is the real measure of correction. Instead, infrastructure continues collapsing while vacancies remain unfilled. The department now plans to absorb additional private prisons while reprioritizing billions away from facilities management. At the same time, maintenance backlogs worsen and rehabilitation spaces deteriorate further. The Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services also remains structurally weak. An oversight body cannot properly function while facing vacancy pressures, financial constraints, and continued dependence on the same department it must monitor. Independence on paper means very little without operational capacity. Honorable members, crime does not occur in isolation from poverty, unemployment, and social collapse. As we fight crime, so must we also fight the root causes of the problem. However, institutions also matter. Weak leadership, procurement failures, poor internal accountability, instability in management positions, and ineffective security architecture deepen the crisis inside correctional facilities. That is why the EFF demands a different direction. We need an emergency rehabilitation plan for non-violent offenders and remand detainees outside prisons. We need stronger parole support linked to employment and community reintegration. We need properly funded rehabilitation programs connected directly to TVET colleges, agriculture and production workshops. We need aggressive action against corruption and collusion involving officials. Most importantly, we need a correctional system that restores human dignity instead of reproducing violence and criminality behind prison walls. The Portfolio Committee itself raised serious concerns regarding unnatural deaths, weak self-sufficiency targets, and declining participation in community initiatives by parolees and probationers. Those concerns are not minor administrative issues. They point to a department struggling to achieve its own stated objectives. Even the Auditor General continues raising concerns about measurable targets and accountability weaknesses. Yet, year after year, the APP repeats broad commitments without sufficient detail about implementation, timelines, or consequences for failure. Parliament cannot continue accepting strategies, plans that describe activity without demonstrating transformation. South Africans are asking for safer communities, a correctional system that produces violence, trauma, gangsterism, and repeat offending is failing both offenders and society itself. A state that cannot rehabilitate will continue reproducing the very violence it claims to fight. For these reasons, the economic freedom fighters reject vote 22, and we call on all South
Thank you,
Africans
Honourable
who
Member.
want a correctional services that rehabilitates and reintegrates
Honourable
inmates
Noronchungu,
to
your
go
time
out
is
to
now
register
expired.
to vote EFF on the 4th of November. I thank you.
The Honourable Markie.
Honorable Chairperson, the IFP welcomes this budget vote as an opportunity to reaffirm that our correctional services are not only custodian, but transformative as they guide offenders from punishment to genuine reintegration. As such, we must view the Department of Correctional Services and this vote as a vital bridge between justice and restoration to ensure that every person who enters the system is given an opportunity to return to the community as a productive, rehabilitated citizen. We acknowledge the commendable strides made by the department, specifically the focus on internal governance and the commitment to maintaining an 88% rate for the National Senior Certificate. This achievement is more than a mere statistic. It crucial represents a second chance at education and, more importantly, a second chance at life. It is a triumph of reform that equips offenders with the tools to move beyond their past mistakes and contribute meaningfully to society. We must express, however, that our support is not without expectation. In particular, the IFP remains deeply concerned by the persistent budgetary imbalance where the overwhelming share of resources is consumed by incarceration, while social reintegration receive a mere 4% of the total allocation. If parole are to successfully integrate into their communities, this imbalance must be corrected. Without adequate investments in reintegration, the vicious cycle of crime will remain unbroken. Equally troubling is the absence of a clear roadmap for infrastructure maintenance and the failure to reduce targets for unnatural death in correctional centers. These are not abstract figures as they speak directly to the safety, dignity, and human rights of South Africans who are under the care of the states. To address these gaps, the IFP stresses the need to prioritize institutional self-sufficiency by filling artisans' vacancies and expanding offenders' participation in agriculture. Correctional centers can be transformed into productive hubs that reduce the reliance of external procurement. By transforming correctional centers into productive hubs through agriculture and artisan work, we reduce the fiscal burden on taxpayers and eliminate reliance on external procurement, while simultaneously equipping offenders with the trade skills necessary for a life of honest work. Additionally, we must accelerate the finalization of the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, built to ensure an independent oversight body that can protect human rights without fear or favor. When we strengthen the link between the incarceration and community initiatives, we create a system that serves the public interest by ensuring rehabilitating in a live reality and not just a policy. In light of the issues raised, the IFP supports the budget vote. I thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is the Honorable Hendricks.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister, DM, Honorable Members, our Honorable Chair, Kumutso Ramolobeng, National Chair, and support staff of the National Office of Correction. Yes, abafowethu bayamala. DM. Athi le budget ingaphaswa. If this budget is not passed, there won't be more Hendrickses. People say there's no rehabilitation in our prisons. I'm standing, here's rehabilitation. Don't believe me. Look at our Minister of Happiness. Look at Kayton McKenzie. If I did not know better, and I didn't do oversight with this team, which our Honorable Gaza is part of, is doing oversight with us. This team, National Commissioner, is a team that is working. The guys inside are asking me, do I trust you, Chair, DM, Minister? And I told them yes. They are more than happy to have you as the leadership of Correctional Services. On behalf of the Patriotic Alliance, I rise today to debate Vote 22. Correctional Service, a vote that speaks directly to justice, rehabilitation, and the safety of our communities. Correctional Service is not only about incarceration, it's about restoring dignity, reducing crime, and building a society where second chances are possible. South Africa must strengthen rehabilitation programs. And I heard that is what we must do, strengthen rehabilitation, Honorable Mawela. Not come here and say we don't support. How can we not support when children are waiting for this budget inside Correctional Services? Come on, guys, and see them, man. Overcrowding remains a crisis. Overcrowded facilities undermine rehabilitation, fuels violence, and strain resources. We must invest in alternatives to incarceration, such as community corrections and restorative justice to reduce pressure on our system, TM. We must address the growing challenge of illegal foreigners, abahambe, in our correctional facilities. A significant portion of inmates are undocumented foreign nationals, which adds pressure to already overcrowded prisons and strained resources meant for rehabilitation. Vote 22 must work closely with the Home Affairs to ensure proper deportation processes while upholding human rights and maintaining security. We welcome the judgment, TM, of the Constitutional Court that asylum seekers mabahambe and go and apply the emagibo. Foremost, we must protect the rights and dignity of correctional staff. I, National Chair, son protect and our. We are here for you because we can see your job. They are the backbone of our system, yet they face dangerous working conditions. Hey, labantu pagati TM, hey, but dangerous. But dangerous. Vote 22. For most, we must protect the rights and dignity of correctional staff. I repeat, they are the backbone of the system. Yet they face dangerous working conditions and limited support. Vote 22 must ensure that staff are properly trained, resourced, and recognized for the services. Honorable Chair, correctional services is not about punishment alone. It's about transformation. A system that rehabilitates offenders, reduce overcrowding, manage illegal foreign nationals responsibly, and support staff is systems that strengthens justice and protects our communities. Let us commit to correctional services that deliver safety, dignity, and hope. A correctional system that rehabilitates, manage overcrowding, and responsibly address illegal foreigners in a system that secures justice and strengthens our democracy. With that, I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Wessels.
Thank you, Honourable House Chairperson. House Chair, the Department of Correctional Services should play a pivotal part in our criminal justice system. It is correctional services that gives effect to the core principles of our whole penal system, which is deterrence, prevention, retribution, and rehabilitation. But we are clear that there are crises facing our correctional facilities, and that overcrowding is one of the most severe crises. Overcrowding also causes a lot of the other problems facing our correctional facilities. And one of those problems are the criminality, the contraband, and so forth that is within and are committed within our facilities. And overcrowding contributes to that. Overcrowding also contributes to the infrastructure challenges, the human resource challenges, and the financial constraints. But the solution to overcrowding is not single-fold. Yes, the criminal justice system as a whole plays a role. The court case backlogs plays a role, especially with regards to remand detainees. And also the whole system as a whole has a lot of challenges that causes this overcrowding. The shortage of beds in our facilities as well, and financial constraints contribute to that. But if one looks at the figures, the correctional facilities currently can occupy 107,067 inmates. Of that, currently, there's 169,519 inmates. That's overcrowding of 62,452 inmates. Of that, remand detainees are 63,194. But of the total number of inmates currently, 26,577 are foreign nationals. 65% of those foreign inmates are there for the contravention of immigration legislation. Honourable Chairperson, we need legislative reforms. And there's quite simple reforms that can be affected by this August House. Section 73 of the Correctional Services Act is contradictory to Section 34(6) of the Immigration Act, because the Immigration Act, Section 64(6), enables deportation of an illegal foreigner who is already convicted and serving a sentence. But Section 73 prevents that, because Section 73 says that an inmate should serve its full sentence of which it was convicted. Amending Section 73 will allow Section 54 of the Immigration Act to be affected. Furthermore, it can also be affected to amend the Criminal Procedure Act to allow for the courts to impose the sentence of deportation on someone who contravenes the immigration legislation. Currently, that's not possible for the judicial, a judge to do. So that is legislative reforms that can address overcrowding and the fiscal pressure that these foreign nationals place on our fiscus. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable members on the virtual platform, you are again reminded that even if everything said in the House is not necessarily music to your ears, you're not to listen music at home and then unmute. Honourable James is the next speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. 5.2 billion, that is the amount taken from South African taxpayers every single year, not to support victims of crime, not to remove guns from our streets, not to improve safety in our communities or create opportunities for our people. Instead, it is spent on housing and feeding 26,000 illegal foreign criminals in South African prisons. According to the Minister's own reply to ActionSA's parliamentary question, these inmates cost South Africans approximately 17,000 per prisoner per month, amounting to a staggering 5.2 billion every year. One simple solution to prison overcrowding is to deport every single illegal foreign criminal to their country of origin and to ensure their own governments carry the cost of their incarceration. South Africa, we've said it is not a hotel for illegal foreign criminals. When ActionSA raised this issue, the minister responded that there are no bilateral agreements in place because South Africa lacks the enabling domestic legislation required to transfer sentenced offenders. So what exactly has the GNU with 75 ministers and deputy ministers been doing for nearly 2 years? Sitting on their hands while South African taxpayers pay the price. In the same period, ActionSA with just 6 members in parliament has already introduced 6 bills. This is yet another example of a government more interested in press conference and photo opportunities rather than fixing the real problems while ActionSA does the work. As ActionSA, we will always put South Africans first. We cannot continue spending 5.2 billion every year to house illegal foreign criminals at a cost of 17,000 per inmate per month. So kan dit nie aangaan nie. For the past 2 years, we have supported this budget vote because we recognize the importance of ensuring correctional facilities function properly. We had a debate in this house on the 25th of March on this very topic and no movement has been made. We cannot continue giving this department a blank check while this serious issue repeatedly raised in this house remains unresolved. The most urgent of these is the need to deport foreign nationals to serve their sentences in their countries of origin at their country's expense, not at this expense of South African taxpayers. And if the minister will not introduce the legislation necessary to make this happen, then ActionSA will. Also, Minister, I urge you to dig a little bit deeper and come back to South Africans, this is on another matter, as to the real reason why Vusi Matlala was moved from Kgosi Mapura in December. I put it to you, Minister, you almost faced another big embarrassment. Get back to us with the real reason as to why Vusi Matlala was moved. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Deputy Minister of Correctional Services.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair, Minister of Correctional Services, Dr. Groenewald, Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services, Honorable Ramulobeng, Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services, Honorable members, National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services, Ntate Tobagale, the entire management of Correctional Services and the entire DCS workforce, the inspecting judge, Bozalek, members of the National Council for Correctional Services, members of the Parole Board, fellow South African, Sanbonani, Lochani, Dumelang, good morning, Goeiemorgen. Ours is a democracy that does not claim perfection, but the one that demonstrates resilience, accountability, and unwavering commitment to progress, even if in the face of persistent social and economic challenges. As we celebrate 30 years of Constitution of the Republic of South Africa as adopted on the 8th of May, 1996, under the theme, One Constitution, One Nation, Reflect, Renew, Commit. It is with this context that the Department of Correctional Services carries out its mandate as an institution that must equally evolve, respond, contribute meaningfully to the strengthening of our democracy. Hence, the positioning of our Department of Correctional Services within the criminal justice system and how we confront complex and at times deeply entrenched challenges that place significant pressure on service delivery. What must be clear is that the department is not a finished product, but a work in progress. It is an evolving institution that continuously refines its approach, harnesses its capabilities, and draws strength from its partnership. Our resilience, therefore, is not defined by endurance alone, but our ability to adapt, to build, and to deliver in the concert with others. The responsibility entrusted to us is profound. Each day we work to transform lives, often under most difficult circumstances, seeking to rehabilitate individuals who may themselves be resistant to change, yet we remain steadfast. Our commitment does not end at the correctional center gate. It extends to our communities. That is why we're saying corrections, it is a societal matter. Into our families, into our broader society in which offenders return to after they've served their sentence. Honorable House Chair, at the heart of our correctional system, it is a fundamental principle that every person placed in our care remains a human being deserving dignity, protection, and a meaningful rehabilitation. A proof of Honorable Hendricks here has been shared with us. The responsibility of the department extends far beyond the provision of just providing shelter, food, and security. It includes a duty to safeguard the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of the offenders and create conditions that support their restoration and their reintegration back to the communities. The transfer of state patients from our correctional centers to psychiatric hospitals remains an ongoing and a necessary exercise rooted in both legal obligation and our commitment to humane appropriate care. We have engaged extensively with the department on this matter and shared understanding in terms of the agency that it's required to address. Honorable members, it must be acknowledged that the current infrastructure within the public system is under pressure and is not yet able to accommodate some of the state patients into their psychiatric institution. This reality at times resulted in delays in transfer of such individuals from our correctional facility to the treatment they need. Despite this constraint, we're not standing still. Together with the Department of Health, we have strengthened our interdepartmental coordination and prioritize cases to improve assessment process and also making sure that there's bed space available so that they can be transferred. Honorable House Chair, the correctional services also continues to register measurable progress in fighting against tuberculosis and HIV within our facility. This progress is underpinned by consistent implementation of rigorous screening, testing, and case management protocols within our facilities from the admission, ensuring that all individuals that enters our system, they access health that is appropriate and intervention that is required. And that is why we strengthen this. Central to this sustaining impact, our social integration strategy affirms that rehabilitation cannot succeed in isolation, but it requires a coordinated network of support. It is this reason that the department has deliberately positioned itself as a facilitator of partnership, working alongside with NGOs, faith-based organizations, and other arms of state to ensure continued care, support, successful reintegration beyond our centers. Through these partnerships, we are building a continuum of care, support to parolees and probationers while recognizing and responding to these needs of victims of crime. The integrated approach reflects fundamental understanding of safer communities that are built but not by one institution alone, but through a collective effort. Our collaboration with traditional leader structures, including Mzinchane Royal Council in King Williamstown, other across Limpopo, Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Northwest, demonstrate how community-rooted partnership unlock opportunities. Together, we facilitate skills development initiative that empowers young people, parolees, and community members with practical competences that improve livelihoods. In Kuruman, in partnership with Coxstar, we train 100 beneficiaries, including youth, parolees, and victims of crime in aluminum welding. This is not just a mere training, it is an investment in self-reliance. Similarly, with CITAS, we've trained with the training institution and other stakeholders. We're able to give stipends ranging from 1,000 Rand to 6,000 Rand in terms of imparting skill and stimulating economic participation to reduce vulnerability of reoffending. In the financial year 25-26, we facilitated 633 economic opportunities to support reintegration, as well as 220 parolees and probationers were trained in renewable energy, plumbing, bricklaying, hot water system through SASETA-funded program in Gauteng, and equipping them with this entrepreneurship or formal employment. Also with Rehonored, we extend this opportunity in electrical apprenticeship, plumbing, learnerships, digital programs, and also essential tools such as laptop and data stipends were also, those program includes that. In KwaZulu-Natal, Northwest Mpumalanga regions, in partnership with the IDT through EPWP non-state sector program, 118 participants across multiple sites demonstrating how employment initiatives are aligned. Honorable members, the persistent challenges we face in terms of reoffending, the drivers and the challenges is unemployment, substance abuse, exclusion, lack of support from families. These factors often lie beyond the direct control of our department. Hence, we work with other sector departments in terms of the multi-sectoral response. It is precisely this reason why, as a department, we have this intervention. To date, almost 506 parolees, 85 victims, 154 community members have benefited in the initiatives in terms of transfer skill and employment opportunities that are done by our department. Also, Honorable Chair, we must mention that 25-26 financial year, 256 community izimbizos across the country have been done, and we created platform for dialogue of awareness and accountability. We also intensified our own outreach programs where offenders are supervised, contributing meaningfully, building and renovating homes of destitute families, even our safer houses, and some programs in terms of school vegetables and gardens. To date, 22,000 parolees and probationers have participated in community-based program. Honorable Chair, 136 students have been placed on correctional center,
Thank you, Deputy
contributing
Minister.
both in operational capacity from the department. I thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honorable Mohela.
House Chairperson, let me stand on the already established protocol. Honorable members, while as the ANC supports Budget 422 on financial governance, we urge the department to intensify its efforts to reduce irregular expenditure and strengthen accountability mechanism across all levels of administration. Public funds must be managed with discipline and precision. Every instance of irregular or wasteful expenditure weakens the department's ability to deliver on its constitutional mandate and erodes public confidence in the correctional system. Strengthening consequence management, procurement oversight, and internal controls must therefore remain a priority. The core correctional functions include incarceration and offender management. This must remain firmly under effective public oversight. They are sovereign responsibility of the state and cannot be diluted without affecting accountability and constitutional compliance. In this regard, honorable members, the ANC welcomes the allocation and reprioritization of approximately 2.8 billion towards the phased taking over and reintegration of privately managed correctional centers, Kotamas in Tumule and Mangaung correctional centers. Back in the state management, this is a significant step which strengthens accountability, restores direct public oversight, enhances state capacity, and reinforces public confidence that correctional services are ultimately a public responsibility exercised in the public interest. On institutional capacity and departmental funding priorities, it is important to highlight that a significant portion of the department's budget, which is approximately 70%, is allocated to administration in the form of compensation of employees. Given the labor-intensive nature of correctional services, we support this allocation. The department depends on correctional officers, social workers, psychologists, nurses, and administrative personnel to fulfill its mandate effectively. This is not expenditure without purpose, honorable members. It is a human backbone of the system. In the middle of all these structural problems are the workers who hold the line every day, every single day, the men and women in brown uniform, working in dangerous and very stressful conditions, who keep our correctional centers functional. Some will criticize this as a cost, but as the ANC, we see this as an investment. You cannot talk about safe and rehabilitative facilities if the frontline officials are underpaid, understaffed, and unsupported. We must recognize their sacrifices, honorable members, but recognition alone is not enough. We insist that this budget is used to strengthen training, support staff wellness, and protect whistleblowers who expose corruption in our facilities. A demoralized, overstretched official is a vulnerability in the system, while an empowered, well-trained, and respected official is one of the strongest safeguards we have in our facilities. However, honorable members, we must also strongly condemn the persistence of critical vacancies, both within the department and its entities oversight, which is JICS, both within the department and its oversight entity, JICS, in our country, facing a crisis of unemployment. It is simply unacceptable that funded posts remain unfilled while correctional centers are understaffed and oversight institutions are weakened. As the ANC, we support this budget on the explicit understanding that the department must move with urgency to fill these vacancies, prioritizing capacity and the cool face and in jigsaw so that both service delivery
Thank you,
and
honorable
independent
member.
oversight are strengthened. Yeah, Leboga, we support this.
The next speaker is the Honorable Swart.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, as we consider this budget vote, the ACDP believes that in addition to punitive and a deterrent role that incarceration plays, it must play a rehabilitative role so that offenders can be reintegrated into society, as illustrated by Mr. Hendricks today. Correctional Services is a receiving department in the criminal justice sphere, and as crime levels increase and more offenders are prosecuted, so does the pressure on correctional services. This has resulted in severe overcrowding at many of the centers that affects rehabilitation. Ineffective rehabilitation contributes to reoffending. It also places the safety and security of both inmates and officials at risk. The ACDP has long supported restorative justice principles, where the offender is not a danger to society, such as in property crimes. In such cases, compensation can be paid to victims instead of incarceration, based on the principle of restitution. Offenders can then be rehabilitated to lead responsible lives, as opposed to imprisonment, where offenders are often raped and abused into a lifetime of crime. Another way of addressing overcrowding is to reduce the number of awaiting trial detainees, as we've said many times before. Many of these are not guilty of the crimes they are charged with. The challenge is, of course, severe delays in the criminal justice system, where criminal trials take years to finalize, this contributing to overcrowding. Speedier finalization of trials will go a long way to solve this problem. The ACDP is also concerned about the measures, including the bail protocol, Section 49G of the Correctional Services Act, and Section 63(1) and 63(a) of the Criminal Procedure Act, which we believe are not being used optimally. Many such awaiting trial detainees have less than 300 Rand bail, but cannot even afford that amount, while it costs 460 Rand per person per day to incarcerate those persons. We once found a remand detainee with a bail of 100 Rand. This does not make sense. And we support the bail independent pilot bail project to resolve this issue. And of course, bail is beyond the control of the minister or the commissioner and is in the hands of the judiciary. And we strongly recommend consideration of discussions in this regard. We also believe that a way of reducing overcrowding is to deport foreign nationals who are sentenced here to serve their sentences in home countries. We found Mr. Vessel's recommendations to amend Section 73 of the Correctional Services Act, as well as the Criminal Procedure Act, to allow judges and magistrates to deport sentenced foreigners helpful in this regard. These amendments require urgent attention, possibly even a committee bill, to expedite these amendments.
Thank you,
I thank you, Honourable Chair. Thank you.
Is there a speaker on behalf of the UDM? If not, I recognize the Honourable Ghana.
Honourable members, Minister, Correctional Services is a department that's very close to my heart. I never miss an opportunity to speak about it because I recognize the integral role of this department in creating a safe and prosperous South Africa. Correctional Services may be at the end of our criminal justice system, but it remains a linchpin that determines the success of the entire pipeline. Last year, I stood here and spoke about how this department is criminally underfunded, and this remains the case. We will never be able to address violent crime without investing in correctional facilities, their staff, and rehabilitation programs. Similarly, members of this House have spoken ad nauseam about overcrowding in our correctional facilities. We know this is a problem that affects detainees daily and have for years. We also know what causes it, and yet we are moving at a snail's pace to address it. Honorable members, we need bail reform and we need it now. How can we claim to be a just society when the only determinant for whether a person is incarcerated or not is often whether they and their families can spare 500 rand? It is encouraging that a review process is underway. However, I want to urge you, Minister, to ensure that this process moves with the necessary speed. We should not allow for remand detainees to be incarcerated a day longer than they should be. At the same time, we cannot claim to be a just society when we continue to treat those convicted of petty crimes the same as those convicted of violent crimes. I have called for the introduction and normalization of alternative sentences for lesser crimes before, and I want to reiterate that call today. Let us put people to work in our communities, cleaning the graveyards, the schools, the clinics, and the general cleanliness of the communities. Let them repair their relationship with communities so that they exit the justice system renewed and demotivated from engaging in further crime. This rehabilitation should not be limited to only alternative sentences that we propose. There must be a concerted effort to invest in training and skills development programs, as well as health interventions such as drug rehabilitation and psychological support programs. We cannot fix our criminal justice system without an optimally functioning correctional services. Let this department become an example of the just and dignified society that we all deserve to live in.
Thank you. Is there a speaker on behalf of BOSA? The ATM? Jama-ah?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Beloved family of South Africans, Honorable Minister and fellow honorable colleagues of this august House, in the name of Almighty, the most gracious and the most merciful. Jama-ah notes and votes in support of vote number 22 on correctional services. Correctional services is not only about punishment, but also rehabilitation, restoration, and rebuilding human dignity. Our overcrowded prisons, gangsterism, drug abuse, and repeat offending remain serious challenges that require urgent attention. Jama-ah calls for stronger rehabilitation programs, skills development, education, and moral regeneration initiatives to ensure offenders return to society as productive citizens. Greater support must also be provided to correctional officers who work under extremely difficult and dangerous conditions daily. Jama-ah further emphasizes the importance of fighting corruption within correctional facilities and ensuring accountability, transparency, and effective management of state resources. A safer South Africa can only be achieved when correctional services genuinely contribute towards reducing crime, restoring hope within our communities. Rehabilitation today, safer communities tomorrow. Restore lives, rebuild society, correction with compassion, justice with purpose. Every human deserves a second chance, from prison to purpose. Rehabilitation is the key to reducing crime, transforming offenders into responsible citizens. Hope, healing, and rehabilitation. Breaking chains through education and skills. Correctional services must correct lives, rebuild a person, protect the nation, changing minds, changing futures. A rehabilitated prisoner is a stronger society. Justice must restore, not only punish. Empower rehabilitation and let us repeat crime. I thank you. Malipongwe.
Thank you, Honorable Ishmael Musa. Is there a speaker on behalf of the NCC?
Oversight in Durban.
The PAC, the UIT, Good Party? If not, I recognize the Honorable Engelbrecht.
Honorable House Chair, colleagues, let me begin where every South African begins their day. Not with a budget spreadsheet, but with a question. Is my family safe? The DA is in the government of national unity, and we have chosen to take responsibility, not to sit on the sidelines. And because we are in the GNU, we will probably support this budget. But let there be no mistake. Support is not endorsement. We support because we want to fix, not because we are happy. 6 months from now, South Africans will go to the polls in the local government election. They will not vote on GDP forecasts or MTF projections. They will vote on one thing: can this government protect me? And today, I'm here to tell you, as a DA member of this GNU, that we are not there yet, not by a long shot. The department gets 30.9 billion rand for the 26-27 year. This is real money, your money, my money, taxpayers' money. But look how it is spent. 79% goes to administration and incarceration. 12% goes to rehabilitation, and only 4% goes on social reintegration. We are spending almost everything on locking people up and almost nothing on stopping them from coming back. This is not a correctional system. That is a revolving door. The DA in the GNU has already pushed for reprioritization. We will keep pushing. But the truth is, this budget still shortchanges rehabilitation and reintegration. And we will not be silent about it. Honorable Chair, the department's own APP says almost 170,000 inmates against 170,000 beds. That's 59% overcrowding. And the target? To keep overcrowding at 50% for the next 3 years. Not reduce it, maintain it. 50% overcrowding means a cell built for 20 holds 30. That is inhumane, that is dangerous, and that is a political choice. The DA's policy is clear. Imprisonment is for violent and dangerous. For petty offenders, for those who cannot afford bail, for addicts, use alternatives, electronic monitoring, community service, not custodial sentences. We have raised this. We have tabled proposals, but change is too slow. 6 months before local elections, communities are asking, why are our prisons still factories producing worse criminals? Nobody knows exactly how many released prisoners come back, but credible estimates put recidivism between 55 and 94%. That means the majority, perhaps even the vast majority, returns to crime. Why? Because the APP tracks how many offenders complete, for instance, a welding course. It does not track how many gets a job as a welder after release. It does not track how many stay out of prison. This is like a school measuring how many children write exam, not how many pass. The DA says measure what matters. Employment after release, rearrest rates, family reunification. Without those indicators, we are flying blind. If you don't measure it, you can't fix it. In the GNU, we have insisted on outcome-based reporting. The department has agreed, but implementation is too slow. The number of victims participating in restorative justice programs has dropped from over 18,000 to a target of 14,300. That's a decline of nearly 4,000 victims. And the community reintegration sub-program budget is cut by more than 9% in real terms. You cannot empower victims with less money. You cannot trace victims without vehicles. You cannot support victims without social workers. The DA has put forward a victims charter, a right to information, a right to be heard, a right to restitution. We will continue to fight for that in the GNU. But today, this budget does not go far enough. Because we are in the GNU, we are not criticizing from the outside, we are inside, pushing. First, we are demanding a sentencing framework that reserves prisons for violent offenders and use evidence-based alternatives for others that will reduce overcrowding and save billions. Honorable Chair, the DA will probably support this budget. Why? Because we are in the GNU, because we have chosen to fix, not sit on the sidelines and howl. Because a budget voted down means no salaries for officials, no food for inmates, no medicine.
Order, honorable members, allow the member to conclude. Please proceed.
And to the voters, 6 months from now, you will choose local government, choose the party that has a plan, that delivers results, where it governs, and that fights for your safety every single day. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Sokopo.
House Chair, Minister, Deputy Minister, honorable members. At this stage of the debate, one thing should be clear. If leadership, immigration management, and oversight are weak, the rest of our good intention in correctional service will simply evaporate. A capable, ethical, developmental state in this sector requires a leadership in DCS that is not afraid to confront difficult truth and fix what is broken, instead of polishing quarterly reports while problems grow in shadows. A major pressure point in the budget is the management of undocumented foreign nationals. We agreed that more than 20,000 foreigners are not people that are able to be rehabilitated in terms of the programs that DCS have, mainly because of the reason they are incarcerated. It's for immigration law in the main, and some would have to leave. Our stance as the ANC is straightforward. Where foreign nationals have completed their sentence or are no longer required in ongoing legal processes, the state must move with greater urgency to process their status, and where appropriate, deport them in line with the Constitution, our immigration legislation, and international obligation. Honorable members, in making this call, We are equally clear. We say no to xenophobia, but firm, lawful management of immigration issues can never be an excuse for hatred or scapegoating. House Chair, oversight in this portfolio committee, it's not a decorative accessory. The minister, the DM, and the National Commissioner seated at the back will attest that our oversight as this portfolio committee is outcome-based. Outcome-based oversight. We go to a facility or facilities, we come back with reports, and they give them a process to implement what we have discovered. That's how we work in this committee. As we mark the 30 years of constitutional democracy, we must ask ourselves, do our correctional service centers reflect the society we are trying to build, or the injustices we are trying to leave behind? With all its challenges and imperfections, Budget Vote 22 gives us tools to move in that direction, to tackle overcrowding, strengthen security, support officials, invest in rehabilitation, and build a new generation of ethical correctional leaders. House Chair, if we are serious about
Honorable Sokopo, just take your seat for a moment. I have a hand here to my left. Honorable Reddy, why do you want to be recognized?
Thank you, Honorable. I just wanted to know if the Speaker will take a question about whether there's space for Ramaphosa inside the prison.
Honorable Reddy.
They must keep a space for him. Does he have?
Please don't do that.
Take a question, sir.
We will first inquire whether he's prepared to take a question. Honorable Sokopo, are you prepared to take a question?
No, Chair. I'll take it outside.
Thank you. Please proceed.
We'll meet you outside. No problem.
No problem. House Chair, if we're serious about constitutional accountability, then these governance questions cannot be treated as a footnote to the budget. Weak coordination and undocumented foreign nationals feed overcrowding, and under-resourced jigs opens the door of abuse and mismanagement. A relationship in correctional environment erodes public trust. Budget Vote 2022 must therefore be implemented in a way that tightens coordination on immigration, strengthens genuine independent oversight, and insists on transparency from all players inside the system. Honorable members, we will record very clear with sight of the choice, it's ours, honorable members. In ours and history will record very clear which side of that choice we took. For our part, and with these expectations firmly on the record, the ANC reaffirms its support for the 2026-2027 budget. I thank you.
Thank you. To reply to the debate, the Honorable the Minister of Correctional Services.
Geachte voorsitter, I first want to thank all the participants, and I also want to thank for those supporting the budget and those who do not support the budget. You are entitled to your choices. What is interesting is that the parties and the honorable members not supporting the budget, they are complaining about the problems in correctional services. But I have mentioned the problem is the budget. We need more money. That's what we need. And therefore, I want also to thank the political parties supporting it. Honorable Chairperson, quite a couple of the honorable members have mentioned the overcrowding. The Honorable Ramol Lobeng, she also, say again? Okay, Ramol Lobeng, right. No, okay, don't distract me. The fact of the matter is as follows, that overcrowding is a problem. And it is true. And I think the Honorable Wessels has put it quite clearly in perspective. We have about, around figures, 106,000 sentenced inmates. We have 107,000 beds. But then we have about 63,000 remand detainees. So there are enough beds for sentenced offenders, but remand detainees. And that brings me to the further aspect in terms of legislation and amendments of the legislation applicable when it comes to remand detainees. I also want to mention that in the criminal justice system and the different cabinet committees, this matter is a priority, and we do discuss how we can amend legislation for specifically when it comes to foreigners. And we have around about, can we say, when it comes to foreigners, almost 27,000 in our facilities. Honorable members also have mentioned the fact that there are members or remand detainees who could not afford bail. We have about 3,300 remand detainees who could not afford bail of R1,000 and less. But it is costing the taxpayer 463 Rand per day to have an inmate there. So that is part of the criminal justice system. We will continue with that. We are already in the process of the legislative reforms that has been mentioned. But unfortunately, and as honorable members should know, that to amend legislation is quite a process. You have to go through different phases, and after that, in the end, we're also going to have public inputs and hearings by the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services. Let me say this, that with the budget constraints, I want to reiterate it again, that we have to deal with the situation and try our best. I think it was the Honorable Engelbrecht, he said, is my family safe? And of course, but if we ask, is my family safe, we could ask that to many other departments as well, not only to the Department of Correctional Services. We are in the end of the queue. It starts with the police arresting more people. They are becoming more effective. Then it goes to our courts. And after the courts, it ends with the correctional services. But I want to say that we only have so much space. But yes, the Minister of Finance announced that we will get 2 more prisons that will be built, one in Nigel and one in Kirkwood, but that takes time. But in the meantime, we will have to deal with the situation. I want to thank you, everyone, for the support, and let's take hands to solve and ensure that my family is safe. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, you reminded that 2 debates are scheduled simultaneously for 2 o'clock today. The health budget vote debate on vote number 18 will be held in this chamber, the Goodhout chamber, while the public works and infrastructure budget vote debate on vote 13 will take place in committee room M46. That concludes this debate and the business of this mini-plenary. This mini-plenary will now rise.
Recording stopped.